As there isn't an option, in just 4 years, your company's market capitalization increased from $100 billion to $2.24 billion. What you do now is wager speculatively on anything that sort of, quote unquote, matches Nvidia. In your opinion, is he a more visionary than Elon Musk? Indeed. Even while Nvidia's revenues continue to increase, the spread trade will eventually show that the company loses market share. Nvidia is probably about to launch a full-scale offensive on Microsoft, Amazon, and GCP. Elon Musk maintains his assertion that he can transform Tesla into a leader in artificial intelligence. Greetings from Morning Trade Live once again. Nvidia and Tesla are two mega-cap companies that need to be thoroughly examined. Let's welcome Spear Invest's founder and CIO, Ivana Delpa. Ivana, I really appreciate you being here at my desk. I'm glad to have you. Caroline, thank you for having me. Okay, so let's discuss Nvidia and chip makers in general because there have been rumors that the Biden administration may tighten export regulations to China. At the moment, it doesn't appear to be significantly affecting any of the chip makers. What do you suppose the reason is? Caroline, there was a little expectation of more limitations. Thus, the news is marginally better than we anticipated. You're not seeing a significant impact because of this. The greatest impact was felt at that point because we had already seen some quite significant limits, particularly on the high-end CPUs for companies like Nvidia. Therefore, the new constraints are better than people had anticipated, but not necessarily better. All right, and I do want to discuss another headline from this morning with you before we move on to Nvidia. Naturally, that is the fact that Pat Gelsinger is no longer the CEO of Intel. As a result of the news, Intel's stock is currently up more than 3%. How do you feel about this change? It's a bit of a surprise, really. We weren't too surprised, Caroline, as Intel had been struggling and their foundry business in particular was in a very bad place. Therefore, we anticipated that something would change. The market anticipates that former Qualcomm CEO Steve Mollenkopf would be a viable contender in this case. I believe it was necessary. We'll see what happens. To have a more revolutionary effect here, a new CEO was required. Given that Intel's stock has dropped more than 50% so far this year, I suppose I shouldn't say it's a major surprise. However, merely in terms of the announcement, I find the timing to be somewhat intriguing. Now, since Nvidia has clearly been the fan favorite this year, let's talk about it. It appears to be far ahead of all other chip makers, particularly in the area of artificial intelligence. As we consider the upcoming year, is it in a position to continue to dominate? Well, Caroline, Blackwell is going to have a huge impact on Nvidia as we go to the upcoming year. But I would point out that, in contrast to Hopper, which was integrating into already existing data center infrastructure, the Blackwell chip necessitates completely new data centers because of its power requirements. As we move into the upcoming year, we will see a big improvement in the broader value chain, including networking and power generation. But we will also see a slight improvement in Nvidia, albeit at a slower and more erratic rate than we witnessed with Hopper. Will that be sufficient, then, to drive the stock higher? Since it's up more than 180% so far this year, I believe you can underestimate. Although the market has reached new heights, Nvidia is still 8% below those heights. Though we haven't noticed the stock's strength like we have in some other parts of the market, it is still witnessing a fairly fantastic run-up. Will we see that again, in your opinion? So, of course. The stock will rise in the following leg as soon as the Blackwell data are released in earnings. On an EV/EBITDA ratio, it is currently trading in the mid-20s for the next year. We consider that to be a solid starting point for the stock. Earnings must therefore be the main surprise, and we certainly anticipate a sizable one. We anticipate that Blackwell alone will generate over $200 billion in income. In light of this, would you purchase any Nvidia weakness? Of course. In fact, it's among our best holdings. We are still holding it then. In the short run, we believe there is some additional upside in some of our other assets. We list all of our positions on our website. However, we believe you'll get a significant advantage when Blackwell emerges. Therefore, I believe that this retreat is a really fantastic entry moment if you're a patient investor. All right, so before we actually trade Nvidia, I would like to ask you a quick question. In terms of some of the competition, We haven't seen anyone really challenge Nvidia. AMD is the one we sort of focus on, although it hasn't been nearly as successful from a stock viewpoint. Do you think AMD will gain more distance, or do you think others will start to catch up? It's interesting to note, Caroline, that we had less competition this year than we had anticipated. We anticipate that the hyperscalers will create their own chips in the upcoming wave of the competition. Marvell is in a great position to gain from this. In order to get these chips to market, they are collaborating with hyperscalers like Microsoft and Amazon. Since they currently have a customer base built, we see the area gaining traction in the upcoming year. All right, Ivana, remain with me while I go trade Nvidia with Tom White. You've heard Ivana Tom. She remains optimistic about the name. She would exploit any vulnerability. Tell us then how you would trade this name. Well, this is how you have to look at it. Since the stock is expensive, the options market may offer you a somewhat better chance to offset some of the costs of taking a bullish position. In order to give myself some leeway if this Santa Claus rally persists, I've looked ahead to the weekly cycle ending on December 27th, which means that I have 25 days till expiration. Do all equities keep rising, or does Nvidia's stock bounce back from last week's 2.6% losses? It is exploited by this tactic. If you want me to go over a particular section again, let me know.